Hello, and welcome to the first video in this video series. In this video, we will learn about one important and very interesting aspect of nature of doing science, which is scientific uncertainties and scientific consensus. Science is an essential way to know about the natural world. It helps us to better understand natural phenomena by providing plausible explanations of these phenomena and allowing us to explore their causes, effects, and relationships. Along with technology, it helps us to find possible solutions to many problems that we face. Yet, science also has natural limitations that prevent us from knowing the world perfectly. Scientists know these limitations and try to address them in their work. However, many people don't recognize science limitations. This weakens their ability to evaluate scientific information and debates and recognize misleading information. It also limits their abilities to make informed decisions about science-related issues and problems. In this video, we will focus on a main aspect of nature of doing science. That is, scientific uncertainties and how scientists address them through reaching possible consensus. Doing science involves inherent uncertainties. There are actually different forms and reasons for these uncertainties. In one way, uncertainty means that when scientists are collecting their data and doing their experiments or their studies, measurements are not completely accurate. Scientists usually calculate the possible error involved and communicate it to other scientists. Different types of measurements usually have certain acceptable level of error. For example, try to measure the thickness of a sandwich using a caliper for 5 times and record your data. Do you have the same reading for each time you measure the sandwich? Compare your data with those of your classmates. Are these the exact same data? Which set of data seems like the most accurate? And how do you reach an agreement about your data accuracy? Uncertainty also means that when scientists are trying to make sense of the world, their knowledge is never complete. There is always something more to know and something new to refine their learning. For example, our knowledge of the structure of the atom has been refined over more than 2,400 years, and there are still more to learn. Also, when trying to make sense of the world, scientists usually consider multiple and sometimes competing ideas that might explain the phenomenon they are studying. They also consider different procedures to examine these phenomena and how the research should be done. For example, to examine the effects of neonicotinoid pesticides on bee populations, scientists had a general agreement that these chemicals will kill the bees. However, they debated whether these effects are strong enough to have significant impact on the whole bee populations. They also debated whether it's better to examine the impact through lab experiment or real-life studies. When faced with competing ideas, scientists test each idea in many different ways and collect evidence to support these ideas. This generates multiple lines of evidence that are refined over time and with the development of new technologies. For example, 2 competing ideas about coral atoll formation were evaluated based on multiple lines of evidence. Additionally, iteration also helps scientists to evaluate competing ideas and reduce uncertainties. Competing ideas are also brought forward to the scientific community to evaluate them and get consensus or agreement on what might be the most valid ideas or procedure. The idea or ideas that are accepted by the scientific community are usually the best explanations available at that time. These scientifically accepted ideas and explanations are not usually fixed, but can change and get improved over time. For example, in the 18th century, a well-accepted scientific theory was that the human embryos pass through a fish stage in their development. The reasons for such a persuasive theory was that in their early development, human embryos do have slits in their necks that look like very much fish gills. The evidence and knowledge available at the time made the theory persuasive and acceptable. However, it was until after Darwin's evolutionary theory that scientists found out that the slits in the human embryos' necks are a result of a human and fish sharing a common ancestor and some similar DNA. Although the 18th century theory wasn't correct, it wasn't either totally wrong, as it pointed to possible links between human, fish, and other species. So, to accept or reject certain scientific explanations and ideas, the scientific community used certain criteria to judge their validity. And reaching consensus can be a complex process that is usually shaped by different social factors and available evidences at that time. Now that we've learned about scientific uncertainties, let's have an activity to see how it might feel like in practice. Scientists and doctors in Canada are investigating a new mystery brain disease that appeared in the province of New Brunswick. The disease is causing memory loss, hallucination, and muscle weakness, and might be fatal. It is different from other known brain diseases. Until May 5, 2021, there have been 48 cases reported of both males and females and among different age groups. Now, imagine that you and your classmates are scientists responsible to investigate this disease. You have different hypotheses on the possible causes of this new disease. Some of you suspect that it's caused by a genetic disorder. Others believe that it might be caused by an autoimmune disease, a pollution by heavy metals, or due to a new type of infection. Your task is to explore what evidence you have to collect in order to support your hypothesis. So in your group, choose one possible cause to investigate. Discuss what evidence might support or disapprove your hypothesis, and brainstorm what types of tests you might have to do to collect your evidence. Based on your discussions, create possible lines of evidence and share it with other groups in your classroom. Now that we've learned how uncertainties and competing ideas are main parts of doing science, we should also carefully consider that sometimes these uncertainties are intentionally manipulated to create doubts and give the impression of uncertainty on what is actually a scientific consensus. In other words, scientific consensus are usually ignored, and weak uncertainties are played out to create doubts. These doubts are used to affect the public opinion and policymakers when decisions are going to be taken about problematic products, like for example, cigarette advertisement. To learn more about these and other types of manipulation, watch our next video in this video series. You can find a link to these videos in the description. Thank you for watching.